Jim Walsh shall be chairing today's meeting. I'd like to introduce our commissioners and staff and guests. We'll go around the table.
Doug Kellner.
Adeline Aquila.
Gregory Peterson.
Todd Valentine.
Tim Galvin.
Paul Collins.
John Conklin.
Dave Loomis. Tom Connolly.
Joe Burns.
Anna Savitsura.
Bill McCann.
Liz Hogan.
Bob Brehm.
All right.
Oh, Norman Green, Chautauqua County.
Susan Barron, Orange County.
Dennis Ward, Erie County.
Amy Allo, League of Women Voters.
Bob Warren, Election Operations.
Terry Reeves, Election Operations.
John Leto, ESNS.
Jimmy Gilkine, Albany Times News.
Thank you all. Welcome. We have a two-part meeting today, as I'm sure you've seen on our agenda. The first one is the Board of Canvassers Commissioner meeting. And we have the opportunity now to approve the amended certification of the election results for the November 6, 2012 general election. There were some changes from Ulster County and New York City, but no changes to the winners. I would ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
On the question?
Aye.
Yep. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. We'll now move to the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. First item of business, the minutes of the February 6th meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes as drafted.
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, unit updates. Executive, Bob Brehm and Todd Valentine.
Well, we're plugging along. We've had some, as far as the budget's concerned, there were no significant changes in the adoption of that. I mean, other than what were reflected with the change in rent from the last time. So that ended up being as expected. We continue to work with OGS for fine-tuning parts of the building, for getting electrical work done and making sure the workstations are set up properly. And we're also continuing to work with the new process for what's called the Business Service Center and how we do any of our purchasing, the day-to-day payment of bills. It continues to be a work that with both the people that have moved to the Business Service Center and the new statewide financial system, which, is having some tweaks to it, presents, a lot of challenges as far as the timing for getting contracts done and bills paid, but, we continue to work on that, so.
How many buildings have we been in in the last 10 years?
Oh, in the last 10 years, just two, fortunately.
And two in the 10 years before that.
Yes. So it always takes quite some time to settle in, and
I'm getting to know all of Albany.
it's good. That's good.
I never saw that it was a big saving to the government.
Oh, it was a dramatic, our savings alone, our rent was approximately $30,000 a month, so.
And bring everybody in.
Yeah, but the cost savings still is way more over the 10-year period of a
I
new
hope
lease.
so. We're never any place for 10 years, though.
Well, we did stay at the last place for 11, so we
I
had.
liked the last place.
Yeah, well, but that was rented space, and we needed to move to state occupied space.
I know.
There was obviously space
It's not
available.
anybody's fault. I
$30,000 a
understand.
month.
The rent was, yeah.
I just wanted to say that for the last 6 months.
Yes, well, over the last year,
Now I've got it out.
it's a lot of growing pains, a lot of
Right.
challenges, so. Bob?
A few items to add to that. The first quarter of the year, I think, was a lot of time spent at various mandatory sessions put on by the executive chamber, and one other was the New York Office of Inspector General has a new program that they're putting forward for statewide uniform guidelines. Todd and I both attended, and a couple of other staff members who work with us on internal controls, so we could use that information to update our internal controls. We're on target to file our internal controls by the end of this month, with the final staff meetings that are part of this year's process, so that's moving ahead fine. We've had 2 monthly phone calls with the county election commissioners. Since our last board meeting, we continue to hold them on the 4th Thursday of the month. And I think they're very helpful to all of us to keep a line of communication going. One of the other mandatory meetings was the Project Sunlight program. Paul and I attended the agency liaison meeting for that initiative, and we provided to all of the covered employees the guidelines and requirements of that program, including the 4 commissioners, is to bring our agency into compliance with uniform guidelines, training, and the reporting requirement of that initiative. Another item, and I see Commissioner Green is here, I attended the pilot program that the Chautauqua County Board of Elections did, the village election in Westfield, on March 19th for their e-poll book pilot. They piloted 2 systems. They had one election on March 11th with one vendor and one election on March 19th. Other than the foot of snow, it was an interesting day spent. Norm and his staff did a great job, and Commissioner Abram. And it really was interesting to see the training, the inspectors, how they utilized the system. The voters really had no real reaction that I could tell from the conversations, but the inspectors who actually had to do the work really found it helpful. I thought that was a really good activity. The commissioner sent us reports that Anna requested, if their follow-up report on how the e-poll book test went. So, one, it was good to go and see it myself, and to hear what the people had to say about it. One other initiative that I want to point out that I think is interesting, Todd and I serve on a National Association of Secretary of State's Task Force on Emergency Preparedness in light of a series of hurricanes that came to our community before the primary election 2 years ago, and of course before the general election. It's a national group to look at policies and procedures for preparedness, training. What did we learn that we need to put in place differently for the future? So we had the initial kickoff meeting. Interesting enough, it was while I was in Westfield at the village election, so Norm let me use his office to participate. But there's a lot of good ideas and information that's being shared. They're doing a national survey to get input from, the states. What do they have in place that we could benefit from? So I thought that was a really good initiative from that organization, and I thought I'd raise that for you. But other than that, I think that's the main issues other than the day-to-day activity to prepare for this meeting.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you. Legal, Kim Galvin.
I don't have anything to add to our written report other than financial disclosure forms. The time is arriving. The current form on the site is not the correct form, so don't try to get a head start and start to fill it out. They're going to post a new one early next week. You should be receiving an email, everyone within the sound of my voice, that is required to file on April 15th from Ethel@JCope. That's the address. And then they are due May 15th, so I'll keep reminding you when all that starts processing.
Since our last meeting, the Court of Appeals has issued an order denying the County of Nassau and the Nassau County Board of Elections leave to appeal. That means that the challenge to the new electronic voting system is over. Also, the Supreme Court of the United States has denied yet again a motion for reconsideration of a writ of certiorari over the challenge to our ban on out-of-state petition gatherers. So that's over.
Election Operations. Anna, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, good afternoon. We in election operations have been busy. We've prepared the updates to the election results, which you certified at your Board of Canvassers meeting. We have completed the functional testing on what we've lovingly called the ES&S Bengali upgrade, even though there are other features to it. So that also is on your agenda for certification today. That testing includes obviously the source code reports which have been provided to you, and it included a public test on March 28th here at the State Board. No one came to that public testing, but prior to that, the New York City Board of Elections came up with their interpreters to run through the whole system and confirm the language and the screen displays, etc. And we found that very helpful. I think they did as well. They made some comments which ES&S was able to react to pretty quickly. We are functional testing COTS hardware changes in Dominion's central account system. It's an end-of-life issue. We'll have a NYSTEC report on the de minimis status of that change at your next meeting. Doesn't require a board vote. We just need to advise you of that activity. We are beginning work on an upgrade to the ES&S central account firmware. There are change notes that we will provide to you. Those are resulting from their further development of the product, not because of issues with the product as we certified it most recently. We are in the last stages of our RFP for finding a new testing lab for source code reviews. We completed the technical reviews of the proposals that we had received, and on-site visits are scheduled for here next week by the 3 vendors that are proposers to that RFP. We have processed 21 reimbursement vouchers for shoebox activity for the county boards. Some boards still have to complete the contract process. Other boards don't have any money. So I think we're addressing everybody's concerns in that regard, and when county boards have questions, we're certainly walking them through the process and providing language that will help them not have to reinvent the wheel. We provided our county boards of elections their general election certification on March 4th. That included this year a list of Supreme Court vacancies, and that is compiled from information we get from the Office of Court Administration, state party information, where to file petitions, charts, etc. Those are all part of the certification. We have a certificate of vacancy that was sent to Suffolk County for a vacancy in the 2nd Assembly District due to the resignation of Assemblyman Daniel Esquadro. We have sent our staff to fire marshal training as recently as this morning. All staff attended how to leave your building if it's on fire training, which was about 3 hours. I'm not quite sure why, but run would have been a simple solution in my book. We have begun production of reports. I won't say production, really. We're putting outlines together and putting drafts together for the reports related to our EAC grants. One was on the pre-election testing, and the other one is on the value of automated post-election audits. So we'll have drafts that we can share if anyone's interested when the time is right, and then we'll be presenting those to the EAC, and we'll be providing the CDs, et cetera, that were a part of the pre-election testing to other states as well as the EAC so they can post to their website. We are working with upgrade issues with all of our boards of elections, both vendors. We're going out to Schoharie County. They are finally back in their building after the havoc of whatever the storms were that preceded Sandy. They finally have office space back and new equipment, et cetera, so we're going to go out to Schoharie and install all of that for them and help them get back on their feet. They've been out of their buildings for quite some time now. We also shared with you previously, and we had again today, the suggestions that we had made to New York City in response to feedback concerning how to conduct the runoff in the tight time frame that they have, if indeed they need a runoff this year. So those, that email is, again, before you so that you have it for your records. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. We didn't invent anything for New York City. We merely provided the sections of our existing procedure that they could take advantage of and laid out some other options for them. So that is the content of that document.
Senator, I think I could tell you that I was very pleased with New York City during the election. I mean, I think considering everything, even in the areas that had Sandy, and there are many areas in New York City that did, the ones that I went to at least, Tony Island and a few others, I think that they, you know, somehow it seems like they're the model, New York City, how did they do, you know, and they do badly, you know, but I think they did, considering everything, that they did excellently. And maybe I shouldn't say that because you want to give them the incentive to do better. But I thought all in all that they really, you know, pulled a rabbit out of the hat with everything that was on their shoulders that day.
Oh, I hope they learned from their experiences, both during the election and post-election. There's certainly a lot of material there for them to absorb and analyze, and I hope that they're taking advantage of those opportunities now.
I think so. I hope so.
While they have a bit of breathing space, not a lot, but...
With you watching over there, going around and around.
Your lips to God's ears, Commissioner. Joe, do you have anything to add? I don't think I have anything else.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Public information, John Conlon.
Afternoon, Commissioners. I don't really have anything to add to the written report. I just highlight that we're working on the 2012 annual report. That's in a draft right now. We're still waiting for a couple of units to provide their information, and we should have that done by the next meeting. Have anything, Tom?
The only thing I would add is just that I worked with Harry from Anna's unit to give her some of the information on UOCAVA voters for the EAC survey. We've been working with IT as well with regard to an access tool for poll site surveys as part of compliance with Chapter 505. And lastly, John and I are going to be doing a phone call later today with the open.ny.gov website. It's a statewide initiative to kind of publish state data. So we're going to be talking to them about the platform that they have and what kind of information that we have now with regard to either campaign finance and otherwise that we currently publish, and how we can kind of get it over to them so that it's in there in a timely fashion. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Campaign Finance, Liz Hogan, Bill McCann.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me just highlight briefly the topics that I covered in the written report to you. As usual, I give you the statistics relative to what the Campaign Finance Intake and Processing Center is working on, and you can see your stats for yourself, and you can see that our active filers to date are numbering in excess of 12,500. So we are up there. I also noted that we've sent out our annual filer update in excess of 7,000 filers. The handbook on the web and selected topic schedules are updated in updated versions on the web. And the seminar schedule is finalized. It'll start in May, and that's our annual across the state seminar presentation that the staff gives. We are hoping this year to, as we did last year, have CLE accreditation for certain of our seminars in certain locations. We've submitted our paperwork timely for the approval for that, and have not, that I know of, because I haven't checked this week, frankly. But I do not believe that we've gotten the response, and it's one of those things where there's no number for you to call. There's no way to contact the accreditation board. They tell you, do not call us, we'll call you. So hopefully the CLE accreditation will be available again this year. And anyone interested can certainly register for that on our website. I've indicated to you the audits that are underway. I've also touched in the written report on the fact that we have been working with IT relative, and I'm assuming Dave's going to talk about this, so I really just touch on the fact that we're working with the folks over there relative to the development of new software. We're trying to, in campaign finance, and enforcement to develop our own work group so that we can identify by topic, the real specific nitty-gritty issues that they will have to address in the development stage. And I know Dave has set up some things for us to look at, so I'm sure he'll talk about that. I did know for you that the contract for our service of process will expire in July. We sent our draft RFP to OGS right after New Year's. It was due at the end of January, so we were early, and we still have not seen any progress on that, so we're still awaiting that. We have, as well, as I indicated to you, initiated a process and proceeding for the new lawsuit authorized by 14-126 of the election law, which is relative to the non-filing of 3 periodic reports in an election cycle for an identifiable office. So we've started that, and as well as has been directed by the board, we're initiating the process to sue for collection of judgments, outstanding judgments. Bill and I are very involved right now in a federal litigation that the board is aware of, and that's causing us a lot of time consumption relative to things that we have to deal with for production. If you wish to discuss that further, we can do that in an executive session. But those are the highlights of what we've accomplished in the past month. Bill, do you have anything you want to add?
No, that covers.
Thank you, Liz. ITU, Dave Loomis.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't have a lot to add to my written report. I can just touch on what Liz mentioned with the...
Could you speak up?
Sorry. I don't have a lot to add to my written report. I just, I can touch a little bit on what Liz mentioned with the system process that we're going through with campaign finance to look at the system that's currently there from a technical standpoint, doing analysis, putting our project team together, put a scope together. So we're just in the beginning stages of that project. So that's basically all I have, and I think that's most of what we covered in the written report that I submitted.
What will change when that project is implemented? What will be different about the new system from the current system?
Well, from a technical standpoint, what we're trying to do is look at the software that's in place now, knowing that it's software that's no longer supported from a technical standpoint. So strictly from that side of things, we're looking at moving it into modern software that is able to be supported in today's age with today's technology. The scope of what will be features in the system is where we have to still work through as a team working with the campaign finance unit. So that's why we're just in the initial stages of that project.
Commissioner, may Joe and I amend our unit report, please? We initiated a nationwide survey. We had discussed the cost of ongoing maintenance for the software for voting systems as the 5-year warranty is expiring. There are some results into that system. We did it through the auspices of the Tim Mattice, who some of you may remember, who now works for the Election Center. So as soon as we get some feedback and can do some analysis on it, we can share with you some of the results of that survey. For those county board commissioners that are listening, we're still booking new commissioner workshops. We've done several of them. We have a couple more coming up. And also we're offering another round of EMS training for those boards that want to come to Albany and go through some remedial EMS training with regard to how to use the newest upgrades in the most efficient way possible. And we have a couple of those sessions to schedule in the next coming weeks as well. Sorry.
Dave?
Thank you.
Whole business. Discuss the central count absentee system. Anyone would like to discuss absentee system?
Going to do that.
Hearing none.
Just put some questions together for you based on a very preliminary conversation at a board meeting back in January, I believe. This is by no means a final. It just is aggregation of some of the issues that Joe and I and Bob Warren had when we met to discuss the conversation that was held here at the board meeting. So it's the first step of a number of baby steps, I think, that the board needs to take a look at.
Excuse me, Anna, do we have more absentee ballots because of the hurricane?
Absentee ballots?
Yes.
I don't believe so. I haven't had a chance to really look at the annual report
I was just wondering if the
information.
number went up because so many people, you know, were out of their homes and whatever. Being it was a presidential election.
Yeah, I don't think so. Nothing struck me as
Okay.
being unique in that regard, but it's something we can take a look at and let you
Yeah, I
know at
was
the
just
next board
wondering,
meeting.
yeah. I should have asked that at the, well, it was too soon, really.
Right, yeah.
Well, the issue for us to consider is whether the Sequoia Teamwork Central Count absentee system, which was certified in 1999, prior to the issuance of any of the voting system guidelines by the federal government, should be recertified, or whether we should allow the counties to continue using the old system. It seems to me that would turn on the information we've received in terms of the accuracy of the old system. Has Election Operations made a review of that?
No, we
I
haven't.
mean, we know that there was a major investigation done by the New York City Board of Elections in 2003 concerning problems with the calibration of the scanners in the central count system. And recommendations were made on how to address those issues. I would ask Election Operations to look into that, contact the counties that are still using the system, and determine whether we should require that the system be submitted for recertification.
May I ask you a question? If this work was done in, did you say 2003?
That's right.
That's 10 years ago, right? You think we wouldn't base anything too much on what happened 10 years ago? Do you think? Or just in reflection?
No, I mean, that was a report that demonstrated serious problems
Yes,
with the
yeah.
machine, with the accuracy of the machines.
I remember
And
that.
it was generated because of a special election in Brooklyn, where it was a close contest and they kept running the same ballots through the same
Right.
scanner and getting different results every time they ran it.
I'm from Brooklyn, so I remember that well, yes.
So the issue is whether these machines that have never really gone through a certification testing process that meets the current standards
I make
are
a complete
operating sufficiently accurately that we should allow them to be grandfathered, or
Doug,
whether
I somehow remember that election and the problem, and that somehow that problem was engaged and looked into, but I could be very wrong. I think the board did ask them to do that at that time.
There was basically the report said that they have to test the calibration,
Right.
and added
Yes.
additional testing procedures.
For the pre-election testing.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought they said they would all be done within 2 years or something.
So my question is, are these machines being audited through the manual audits now? What have been the results of those audits? And if Election Operations could report back to the commissioners on that, then it would seem that we would then have data on which to make a decision.
Do they have the time? Should we assign it to someone else?
We can do
I just wonder if they have the time.
Well, who else?
We can do that.
Anna, do you have the time to do that?
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Okay. No, be truthful.
It's part of what we do. We will
Okay.
work it into our schedule and get
Well,
those.
I don't know if you need any other help or anything to help you.
No, we
Seem
should
to
be
have
okay.
quite a load.
We should be okay.
That certainly makes sense.
But we did think at the time, I think a few years later, that the problem had been at least addressed. Had it been solved, that I don't know. But it was addressed.
Good. Thank you, Doug.
Go on to the next one.
New business? Vote on resolution to pay expenses related to HAVA administration complaint alternative dispute resolution services. Liz Hogan and Bill McCann.
Commissioners, this is the annual resolution at this time of year. And what this is the Help America Vote Act requires that the board basically have on retainer these dispute resolution services. This particular group is the group that was vetted, back in probably, 2006, I guess it was. This group was recommended by another state entity, as I believe,
The Attorney General.
Attorney General.
For the amendment law.
And because of the structure of how they would have to be used, which is across the state at various locations in a very short time period, the services that this particular group supplies is what we pay them a retainer for. Now, it is not the full $15,000. We ask you to approve that amount in case there's some expenses relative to this during the year that we have to address. We wouldn't have to come back to the board, but
It
that's...
comes out of federal funds.
And yes, this comes out of federal
Because
funding.
in fact, they have not actually had a single case since HAVA was enacted, correct?
That's correct. And frankly, they shouldn't, but we still have to, by federal law, we still have to have their services available, and we have to pay for them every year.
And state law.
Even though we don't use them.
And say, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I move the resolution.
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Vote on a resolution to pay additional expenses for litigation resolution relative to new voter screen alerts and related certification testing.
The costs that we had set aside and that the board had previously approved were based on estimates. Now that we've actually received invoices for the work, we do need some additional funding. Thus the reason for the resolution for an additional $65,000.
I move the resolution.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Vote on a resolution for certification of upgrade to ES&S DC 200 precinct-based optical scan voting system and companion auto-mark ballot marking device. Anna?
This is the resolution for what we've been calling the Bengali upgrade, for lack of a more common term. And their reports are attached. We had no issues with the system or its functionality. As I mentioned, New York City came up to review the language with their staff interpreters, and the public test was successful that we did last week. And the unit recommends the board certify this upgrade.
Attached to the resolution are the reports, and in the report you attach the report from SLI Global Solutions and the ES&S voting system change notes. Do I understand that by your attaching those reports that the vendors waived their improper confidentiality markings on the reports?
We've made that clear to the vendors, and we'll be posting this as we have in the past once the board votes.
Okay, so these, even though they're marked confidential, they're not any longer confidential. Okay, that was my concern.
I wondered about that too.
Good point.
I'm glad you asked.
All right. With that noted, I move adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Vote on resolutions, plural, to adopt optional email address added. A, amendment to voter registration application, and B, affidavit ballot application. John Conklin, Tom Conley.
Actually, I'd like to ask.
I'm sorry.
If we could table this one, for now, until we get some feedback from the counties.
I'll second that.
All right, this did already go out to the counties, right?
We haven't gotten a lot back.
No.
I don't think we-
each county.
We have a motion to table, there's no discussion on the motion to table. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
I'll abstain. I think we should vote on it now, but I understand if you want to.
I'd like us to vote on it now, but we raised through a table.
All right, so we're.
On table?
Courtesy.
Motion is table.
Yes.
Our next meeting date will be May 23rd, 2013, right here.
Is that a Tuesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday, oh.
That will be after your financial disclosure forms are required to be filed.
Jim, can we vote on the?
Okay, sure. Okay, yes, we want to-
So we get some lunch.
If there's a need for executive session, please let me know. If not, we can vote on our preliminary determinations. No need for executive session?
No, I'm prepared to, I'll move that we adopt all the preliminary determinations as drafted.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. We are adjourned to
Wait,
May...
Wait.
Based on your resolution vote, that was preliminary, there's a final.
Oh.
So we didn't cover that by that
All right,
motion.
now I move that we do the final. That's the referral to the Westchester DA?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry about that.
That was a cute one.
All in favor is aye.
Unbelievable.
Opposed?
Aye.
Right. Motion passes. We are adjourned to May 23rd.
All right, great.
Thank you.
We almost missed